Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Innovation Stories. I'm Allison M. Ryan, the director of the VHA Innovators Network, and I am excited to welcome you back for 3 unique innovation presentations this afternoon. Innovator Experiences will be a time for frontline employees to share their journey from employee to employee innovator. These are employees who have participated in the Innovators Network Spark Seed Spread Innovation and Accelerator program, and they're going to tell you an amazing journey of theirs. And we also have innovation demos, in which a selection of last year's Breaking Boundaries Collaboration Challenge winners, as well as Innovators Network Greenhouse Initiative participants, will give a demonstration and tell the story of their opportunity and collaboration with Innovators Network sites and innovation specialists who will also be joining them. And then finally, innovation exhibitions, which Office of Healthcare Innovation and Learning staff, so OHIL staff, as well as National Centers for Innovation to Impact staff, will present the progress of their initiatives and programs. Have a great afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kelsey Shull, and I am the Human-Centered Design Lead for VHA Innovators Network and the Innovation Specialist at the VA Augusta Healthcare System. This afternoon, we are going to hear from some VA staff and some other people who have been joining in the collaborations this past year. And first off, we are going to hear from Kimberly Jones and learn about her experience with the blood pressure support frame. So Kim, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Good afternoon, everyone. I have a question for you. Have you ever watched the medical team apply a blood pressure cuff and how they need both hands to apply it and put it on a certain way? Now, what if your doctor tells you that he wants you to do this daily at home because your blood pressure is too high and he wants to see if it's related to the office stress or if it's high at home too? Seems like an easy solution, but wait, how am I supposed to do this when I only have one arm to use? I'm Kim Jones, and my 37-year career has been working as a nurse. For the past 15 years, I've had the privilege of taking care of our veterans enrolled at the Boston VA Home Telehealth Program. The scenario I told you about happened to me back in 2018 with a veteran that was referred to our program. He had limited supports at home, was an amputee, and was unable to get a cuff on. We tried very hard to get a system to work for him, but unfortunately, we were not able to meet his needs. And he ended up having to go back traveling to his doctor's office weekly for these checks. And his hardship's the reason why I'm here today. Thanks to the Innovators Network Spark Seed Spread Innovation Investment Program, we've been blessed with the opportunity to take this frustrating problem and come up with a solution. Initially, I thought I would just send this off and someone would take over. You know, they advertised Spark Seed Spread, seemed easy enough. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Once I found out I was going to actually be leading the project, I knew I needed support. I reached out to Bob Smith, a veteran and an occupational therapist in our home-based primary care team, and he was able to take my idea and put it into a working model, as you can see in the slide here. And if you were here earlier, you saw his presentation. The Innovators Network set up all kinds of meetings for us, brought us together with people from all over the country. There were times of fear. What did we get ourselves into? Times of being totally overwhelmed. What are these forms? I'm a nurse, not a business tycoon or a lawyer. And thanks to COVID, when will this end? 3 years already. Go away. I just want a frame made. Regardless of the emotions, the vital takeaway is we were given the support and confidence to move forward. This year, we were connected with MIT Idea Squared. They gave us some additional training, a business mentor, and encouragement to reach out to a vendor. We now have a vendor who's loving our idea, has taken our test model and modified it already, and we're hoping to get it developed into a frame that we can share with all our veterans who need help. Once we get this data tested, we'll be back next year in the SPREAD program and get this mainstreamed into society. So my urge to you is don't be afraid to fill out the forms. Come join us. We're always looking for new ideas. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks, Kim. That was great. I'm curious, can you tell us what has been your favorite thing about this experience?
These trainings and the seminars and getting to meet people from all over the country, I've been in awe of the different ideas that have come up, and I'm like, oh my God, that is so awesome. Why didn't I think of that? Oh, I should have done that. The energy that goes with this, whether it's from senior leadership down to local levels, it's just amazing, and it's an all-around positive experience. Yeah, there's frustration in there. 3 years now I've been stuck in the seed level with COVID, but overall it's been a wonderful experience. I never pictured myself being an inventor after 37 years of being in a nurse.
That leads to my next question for you, which I was like, if I had told you like 3 years ago, before COVID hit, that you were going to be like talking about your idea and your experience and your journey up to this point at IEX, what would you have said?
First, I would have been like, no way, I'm not good at all this public speaking and stuff. And I'm just amazed of the energy and the excitement that's out there. It was the Spark Seed Spread program that actually pushed and recommended me into the MIT Idea Squared. And I got over with MIT and getting their feedback, and Bob, he's been running around for me, attending a lot of these trainings when I haven't been able to get to them. So thanks to his support, we've been able to really tackle this from both ends. And both of us just want the best for our veterans and for everyone. That's why we went into the medical field.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Kim. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Now, I do want to share with everyone tuning in today, there is a QR code available for you to text in questions that you have for those that are sharing their ideas, their experiences with us today. If you have a question, I'll be happy to ask it to our presenters today. So with that, we are going to switch to our next innovator, Sean Rubel, and his in-house eyeglass fabrication for blind rehab. So Sean, I have the unique pleasure of knowing a little bit about your experience from my facility presenting, but why don't you share with us what you've come up with?
Thanks, Kelsey. Hi, everyone. My name is Sean Rubel. I'm a blind rehab specialist at the Cleveland VA. The average length of stay for a low vision or legally blind veteran at a VA inpatient blind rehab center is 28 days. The average turnaround time for prescription eyeglasses from a VA optical shop or specialty optical lab is 4 to 6 weeks. Let those numbers sink in for a second. This means that our veterans don't even receive their glasses while in training to assess and use in conjunction with their newly issued low vision devices. Instead, the glasses are shipped at an additional expense to the veteran's home, forcing them to secure transportation to the nearest VA to have the glasses properly fit. For years, I witnessed this issue directly leading to incomplete assessment of low vision devices, lower success with issued devices, and often unused prosthetics. Before being accepted into the VHA Innovators Network, I felt completely helpless to make a change to this process or any other process within the VA for that matter. I had made attempts to try new solutions in the past, but kept hearing the same old tired VA lines of, that's not how we do it here, or we've always done it that way. That all changed though, once I was part of the Innovators Network, and with the red tape and roadblocks finally removed, coupled with the overwhelming local and national support, I felt something I had not in a very long time, hope. During the investment year, I spread the in-house eyeglass fabrication program that had been trialed and sustained in Cleveland the previous investment year to other regional VA low vision clinics. The goal was to make prescription eyeglasses for these veterans at these additional sites in-house at the Cleveland Blind Rehab Center and prove that the same success it's experienced in Cleveland could also be experienced at other VA low vision clinics. Each site had unique challenges that needed to be overcome to best serve the needs of these specific veterans, the staff, and clinical model. I was able to connect with the blind rehab staff, supervisors, chiefs, and innovation specialists of these clinics the local prosthetics departments and specific vendors to overcome these obstacles and establish standardized practice for each individual clinic. The results were incredible. Over the 3-month trial, the average turnaround time from order to issuance of the glasses went from 4 to 6 weeks down to 7 days across the 4 clinics, while also saving over $50,000. Most importantly, though, every clinic reported 100% positive veteran satisfaction and feedback. All 4 of the spread sites permanently adopted after the trial period, and the program continues to make the prescription glasses for all the low vision and legally blind veterans at these sites. Like the program, I was completely transformed. I was no longer jaded and pessimistic, but instead was now empowered and energized to make change. With the trials all completed and the 4 additional sites now sustained, I applied and was selected as a finalist for the 2022 VHA Shark Tank competition, and will be pitching this program to facility and vision directors nationwide at IEX. My goal now is to spread this program nationally and allow for all our low vision and legally blind veterans to experience the benefits of this program.
Awesome. I'm so excited to see you go forward with Shark Tank tomorrow here at IEX. Can you tell us a little bit more about that aha moment when you were like, you know what, I can do something about this, and decided to submit the idea?
Honestly, it was talking with our innovation specialist in Cleveland. We just were having a conversation, and he's like, "What do you do?" I asked him what he did, and we kind of just connected. And I said, "That sounds interesting. I have an idea, no idea how to do this." And he's like, "Yeah, you're submitting this." And just that was it. And from there on, it's just been a roller coaster, and it just completely changed everything.
That's awesome. You've made a game changer in the way veterans experience their care. So awesome. Thank you so much. All right, next we have Ryan Kosak here to tell us about his radiation exposure monitoring registry. Hey Ryan, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well. Tell us a little bit about what you've got here.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ryan Kosak. I'm the Director of Health Science at the Cleveland VA and the VA Radiation Dose Network. And I'm thrilled to share a story about how a car accident I was in a few years ago led to building a working prototype for what my colleague Andrew Dietz and I call the Radiation Exposure Monitoring Registry. After the car accident I was in, I tried to go to work the next day, and I quickly found myself down in radiology getting a head CT. And my wife was very concerned when I talked to her on the phone. She's like, "You're getting radiation?" And she was very concerned. And being a medical physicist, I thought this was my moment to shine. And I immediately went full nerd on her. And I started to nerd-splain regulations and the physics of radiation and QC testing. But as is the case in spousal communication, I totally missed the point. The point wasn't about what I know or the regulations. It was, how do you know this is safe over the long run? And how do you know this specific scanner, this specific site is normal? What do you compare it against? And unfortunately, there was no way to really answer these types of questions because there wasn't a system in place to collect and analyze all this readily available imaging data in the VA until our innovation was deployed with iNet support. During the deployment of our innovation, we did have to face a lot of challenges, mostly dealing with all these IT groups, and they came out of nowhere, and how best to work with them, how best to network these systems together, and really how to visualize the data in a way that's actionable for providers. We are so thankful for our innovation specialist, Bill Corcara, for helping us to iterate and continue to move on this project. And in just 6 months, we were able to go from 0 to over 2 million exams for over 500,000 veterans. So we were able to collect, analyze over 2 million exams and provide instant results back to local users with the click of a button. So thanks to the Innovators Network, when a spouse, a veteran, a clinical provider asks, what is the long-term health consequence of this specific head CT at this specific facility, we can provide data-driven answers, as well as have a tool for conducting further research into the long-term outcomes for veterans. Moral of the story, apart from maybe listening to your spouse, is that we should be willing to iterate on our innovations when faced with challenges. And that finally, if we want to go far, and we should journey together with forward-thinking groups like INET instead of maybe developing our innovations in isolation from one another. Thank you.
Great story. Can you talk more about how you were able to work with IT to get support for your project?
I've been working in the space for a couple of years, but really it was trying to find the person who I would call like a navigator, who could help navigate you through the situations and sometimes translate. So they may be asking for a specific thing and you don't know what that even means. So having a navigator who could help you work on getting your project through IT was very helpful.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing with us today. Next up, we have Shanna Jenkins and her inventory exchange program. Hey, Shanna.
Good afternoon.
Hey, tell us a little bit about what you've come up with.
All right. So my name is Shanna Jenkins, and not long after I started my job here at the VA, I was updating the operating room implant inventory when I began to notice there was a huge amount of supplies that would soon expire. When I finished the inventory, there were literally tables full of soon to expire and very expensive implants that had to be placed in the trash. Yes, you heard me right. We throw away very expensive supplies routinely. Then it hit me. These supplies are purchased with my tax money. So that's where my mission began. I ignored all of the people who kept saying, oh, just learn the VA way. You can't change the system, because I knew there had to be a better way not to waste so many supplies, and I was determined to find it. So after a few days passed, one night I was cruising on my laptop, shopping for something on Amazon, and my light bulb went off. Why can't the VA offer these supplies to other facilities? Why should every facility stock some of the same items then routinely throw them away when we should share? Why can't we have, quote, an eBay for the VA? My idea started to take life, and my VHA inventory exchange program was born. I was still new to the VA, so I began asking around and talking to people. There's so many resources here, but sometimes they're very difficult to find. Then I saw an email for the Innovators Network. I had really no idea what it was, but I was so determined to get my idea to a reality, and I applied for the Spark Seed Spread program, not knowing if this program could help or not. I will admit, when I found out my project had been accepted, I sort of panicked. I was in over my head. Did I even have time for this? Could this project actually become a reality? My innovation specialists were there with me all along the way. And there were so many times when I thought, hey, I'm just a nurse. This is way too technical for me. What have I got myself into? I don't even have the skills to make this business thing happen. But every time I had one of those thoughts, my innovation specialists were right there to guide me, calm me, and assure me. As I began researching, I calculated the number of items that have been discarded in my VA in 2021 alone. The dollar amount was over $500,000, and that was just in my operating room. Throughout the accelerator, I met people who had visions like I did and wanted to change the system. The accelerator taught us tools and techniques on how to bring visions to reality, as how to adapt to change and stay motivated when we needed to pivot. I met a lot of people through the VHA network, and Josh was one of the people who helped my design come to life. Together, we created our mock prototype website and introduced this prototype to national OIT leads who see the value in my project and are eager to partner with us to make a new reality in the VHA landscape. The potential cost savings for my program is in the millions. Many implants cost thousands of dollars, and many supplies are hard to get, especially given what seems to be the new normal in our supply chain. Why not share supplies and implants? Why not save our government millions? And why not reduce our carbon imprint on the planet? This can all happen with the VHA inventory exchange program. Thank you.
Wow, what an impressive solution for so many different problems. That's amazing. What was the most challenging aspect of your innovation journey so far?
Oh, definitely. Like I said, I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse a long time in the operating room. So navigating the VA red tape and getting in touch with the right people. And that's where my innovation specialists were very, very special to me through this project. They knew how to get the right people with what I needed and use the right lingo. So they got me in touch with Microsoft 360, and we're hoping to get our $500,000 funding approved so we can move forward and hopefully innovate or implement the project in year 2023.
Wow, I can't wait to see what's next for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Min Ho and the project Linking Veterans Who Inject Drugs into Harm Reduction Services. Hey, Min.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good.
All right, tell us what you got.
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Min Ho. I'm an infectious disease physician and a clinical hospital epidemiologist here at the Orlando VA. I came to work here back in 2016 because we had a very robust hepatitis C treatment program. There was a big push at the time to treat as many veterans as possible, and Orlando was among the top 3 in term number treated. We made our big push, but by 2018, we still had a few veterans who would come back, need to be retreated. And maybe of those 25% of those we treated, we found out that they got reinfected because they were sharing syringes. If only we can provide clean syringes as well as education and other harm reduction services, we would not have these issues. Those ideas just were not part of the VHA MO at the time. And this is despite 1 in 4 veterans struggle with illicit drugs, as well as 1 in 4 had a serious mental illness. So we set out to change this. We connected with the Danville VA, and with support from our leadership, we made it happen. We created a RISE program, which stands for Reduce Infection by Sterile Syringe, Safe Sex and Education. It wasn't without bumps in the road, though. I mean, just really including not being able to use federal money to buy syringe, having to provide care to veterans anonymously because of the stigma and their perceived institutional distrust. And then also having to shift the way we provide these services early on in the midst of the global pandemic. We got a few here and there, but it really took off with the help of our INET, specifically the support from our local innovation expert and online training like the Accelerator series. And I'm sure you heard, but what we really learned from the Accelerator series is that for any idea to take hold, you really have to look at 3 key elements. Is it desirable? Is it feasible? Is it viable? Is there value being created to provide veterans with access to clean syringe, access to health screening, and substance use disorder services? The answer clearly is yes. It's also important to work with different partners, nursing, leadership, pharmacy, social work, mental health provider, to really get their buy-in. And then finally, viability. Early on, we didn't have money, and we didn't have access to syringe because, which is a key component of our program, we rely on donation. And it wasn't until we applied for grants with the help of our VHA Innovator Network liaison that we had a sustainable mechanism. With their help, our message has really resonated on the national stage through news interview, national presentation, but that's not the purpose, right? The reason we did it, the reason it's worth to me, is the impact we had on our veterans locally. We reached over 150 veterans through our harm reduction classes, provide over 3,000 syringes, hundreds of fentanyl test strips, as well as other supplies. And it's also gratifying because I'm able to connect to our veteran, one in particular who's HIV positive, only started engaging care because he's part of our program. He opened up about his drug use, relationship issues. There's now a way to emphasize the importance of expanding access evidence-based harm reduction strategy as a way to prevent overdose, connect people to other health services, and save lives. Really, with continued support from everyone, we're going to make this into a tsunami and get the care and assistance that our veterans need and deserve. Thank you for giving me this platform to kind of share our story.
Oh yeah, I love hearing about this, the tsunami. It sounds awesome. What an impactful solution you've come up with. I'm curious, what would you say to other VA employees who maybe see a problem and they don't know where to begin their innovation journey?
Yeah, I think when there is a problem, I think the first thing is to reach out, to the website. I mean, INET has a wonderful website that talks about what is INET. And I think that for me was the first thing to be motivated and say, oh, within the VHA network, there is people who are about pushing the envelope. And then, of course, reach out locally. If you're lucky like I am, blessed with amazing innovation experts like Kim Beliki and Stephanie Sennett, I mean, they're wonderful in being able to provide that support. And I think for me, that's where it's been, all these, I'm sure people have said about red tape and link, I'm able to do this because of them, because of all the support that they have locally, that I have locally. And if they don't know, they go and ask. And I think what's so wonderful is this sense of like family, when I'm preparing for this, having support from like Allison and Matt to be like, and be brutally honest, be like, oh man, that's not gonna work. Try it this way. And I think that's nice. Like, I don't know you guys, and you're so honest with me and forthright and earnest. And that's what I really appreciate about the whole network.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we consider you part of the family too. So thanks for sharing with us. All right, I want to take a second to remind everybody who's watching today about the QR codes. If you have any questions for our innovators today, feel free to use your phone to scan that QR code and send some questions, and we'll get them asked for you. All right. Next, let's talk with Natalie Mandel and learn about her Simplicity Making Breast Biopsy Simple innovation. Hey, Natalie.
Hello. Okay, so my name is Natalie Mandel. I'm a mammography technologist at the Cleveland VA Medical Center. At the time of my Spark idea, I was young in mammography and I was still learning about the different ways to approach lesions during a biopsy. So prior to a biopsy, the radiologist will determine which approach will be the safest and shortest distance by measuring the prior imaging. Sometimes the shortest distance to the lesion is from the bottom of the breast. This approach is called from below. The mammography unit will need to be inverted 180 degrees. And using the current chair, the patient is not able to remain upright. The only way to obtain an adequate breast tissue sample is to have the patient stand or lie on their side. So here I am in a room with this from below approach, and this was the first time I was seeing this live. The radiologist asked the patient if she would be able to stand up for this procedure. Can you imagine that? You're already nervous and uncomfortable before your procedure begins, then you're asked to stand up and hold still for 30 minutes while a needle is being placed in your breast. I immediately thought there has to be a safer, easier way to achieve this. We tried multiple positions of the patient and of her breast, and eventually we were able to successfully complete the biopsy. The procedure ended and my brain started working. I was able to visualize a chair design that would allow the patient to remain upright while improving comfort to the patient and easier accessibility to the radiologist. I explained my idea to the performing radiologist and she thought it was great, so off I went. I anxiously did a quick internet search for a chair that resembled what I was envisioning because I thought there is no way that someone else hasn't thought of this before, like all the other ideas I've had. I then remembered that there was another radiology employee who was part of this thing called the Innovators Network. Through him, I was put in contact with the innovation specialist here in Cleveland. I was excited and nervous all at the same time. My innovation journey began. I attended monthly workshops where I learned the who, what, and how of my idea. I was then able to take that vision and turn it into a 3D mock prototype. I was also taught about human-centered design, where you focus on the problem and not the solution, and you try to improve current practices. I was taught that it's okay to fail. Failure is not something I would be proud to admit to in the past. I was able to meet with other innovators, hear their ideas, and create relationships with people I would have otherwise never met. I took all these new learned tools and used them to create a functional prototype. In the year ahead, I am excited to pilot my idea to a couple of VA sites and get their positive and negative feedback. I'm not sure how my journey will end, but I can tell you that so far it has been amazing. Thank you.
All right. Awesome. I love hearing about how your experience with Spark Seed Spread helped your definition of failure and how failure wasn't a dirty word anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Can you share a time with us about when you got like really discouraged? You know, how did you overcome feeling discouraged? Maybe it was the perceived failure, or just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, at one point, I was learning a new role. I became the supervisor, and my employee at the time, or old coworker, quit. So I was trying to. It was my first year in the Innovators Network, so I was trying to juggle learning my supervisory role, doing all of the patients in the clinic because I was the only mammo tech at the time, and starting this new journey I began. So I just kept at it. I just kept going, and I knew that I had a vision, and I know it's something that could help people. So that was what was most important to me, and here I am 2 years later, still going at it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. Can't wait to see what's next for you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, so next we are going to talk with Punit Vaida and his smart TMS system. Hey, how are you?
Hi, good afternoon. Have you ever had the thought there's got to be a better way when you're in the middle of doing something? I had this experience a few years ago related to a treatment I've been passionate about since 2008 called TMS, or transcranial magnetic stimulation. It's a treatment that's approved for those with depression who have not responded to antidepressant medications. It involves using a coil like this one here, which generates very powerful magnetic pulses, which can stimulate the brain non-invasively and painlessly. So the magnetic field is strongest right underneath the center of the coil. There's like a sweet spot there. And then as you go any distance away from that, it drops off very rapidly. So as a result, accurate positioning of this coil over the target is critical. In the case of depression, we target an area over the prefrontal cortex, which I've marked on this mannequin. The way we do it in clinical practice, we essentially line it up visually as best we can, and we take a Sharpie marker along the edge of the coil, and every time the patient comes in, we try to line it up according to that. Although there's a lot of error that can be, it can be prone to error using that visual technique because you can't actually see directly where the coil is touching. And the patient might even move their head during the treatment and you lose contact, and that could greatly compromise the efficacy of the treatment. So I thought there's gotta be a better way. And I like tinkering, so I decided why not just work on this. So I developed a rough prototype of what I call a smart TMS coil, which incorporates a bunch of sensors on one side and displays on the other side and a wireless monitor. That way, the person who's operating the TMS coil can properly know when the coil is optimally positioned and get some objective feedback on proper alignment of the coil with respect to the target. I showed this to my local VA innovation specialist, and they encouraged me to apply for a Spark seed spread. I was very fortunate to have been selected, and in my time working with iNet, developed multiple iterations of a prototype and tested one out. And I was very happy to find that the smart TMS coil, in terms of accurate alignment, was superior to the visual technique. And actually it was comparable to what we can achieve with these research grade machines costing $60,000 to $90,000. Although this thing is much cheaper to make. But upon further reflection, I found out that this is really not the biggest issue with TMS. This is such a technical problem, but in for practical purposes, most patients who are eligible for TMS can't get it. See, the thing is, for TMS, you have to come into a clinic 5 days a week for 4 to 6 weeks. And unfortunately, a lot of veterans are just not able to do that. So I talked to Frank, my colleague, an innovation specialist collaborating with me on this project, and he said, it's okay to pivot. iNet encourages people to pivot if the path of their project is leading them into a different direction. So over the last year, I've been working on what's called a smart TMS system. This is one that's fully automated, and ideally one that would allow a patient to actually get the TMS treatment in the comfort of their home with all the safety checks in place at a time that is convenient to them. And we made a mock prototype of it last year. I have a cool video of it in action. I'd love to show it, but unfortunately I've been advised to not show it just yet, as we're still working on the patent protection for it. But I appreciate all the support in iNet in helping to turn this idea into a reality and support me along multiple steps of this journey. I think the best is yet to come when it comes to this TMS project. And anyone who's watching, any employees at the VA, if you also get this idea that, there's got to be a better way when you're doing your work at the VA, please apply to Spark Seed Spread, because they can really help transform your idea into reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We actually have a question for you here in the chat. Someone wants to know, can you tell us about any of the materials? Is there a way this product can be made sustainably?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's the materials are, I have several iterations of it in terms of it's essentially a custom-made circuit board and various sensors on this side, like range sensors, to tell you that it's aligned properly and tangential to the scalp. And then there's an orientation sensor, which nowadays you can buy these things for dollars, and it tells you that you're angled appropriately. When mass produced, these things can be made pretty cost effectively, certainly much cheaper than the $60,000 research grade versions that we're competing against. So I think it can be made sustainably, but still requires a little bit of refinement for mass production.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much. That looks awesome.
Thank you.
All right, just want to remind everybody who is tuning in with us to use that QR code. If you've got any questions for anybody sharing their experiences, their demos, or their expos with us today, I'd love to hear from you all and have your questions answered. So with that, we are getting ready to hear from Suzanne Zwerin and her innovation, the Air Pillow on a Roll. Hey, Suzanne.
Hi there. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, good. Excited to be here. Like I was introduced, my name is Suzanne Zwerin, and I'm a nurse at the VA Medical Center in Cincinnati, Ohio. Super excited to tell you about my personal journey with innovation to improve veteran experience. So it was about 18 years ago that my son was diagnosed with asthma. And as a worried mom of a 2-year-old, I scurried around the house with my husband to find out environmental issues that were causing triggers for his asthma. We found pet dander, perfumes, deodorants, and eureka moment is when we realized that the pillow that he laid on for 8 to 10 hours a day could possibly be a trigger for his asthma. As we sought for something more effective, we found a zip-up hypoallergenic cover, and that was it. I said to my husband, wouldn't it be great if we could put air in the pillow? I served as a nurse in the ICU for over 24 years, and we would give baths to patients, throwing pillows here and there. When we went to go reassemble the bed and the patient back together, I would ask the other nurses, hey, which pillow was underneath the patient's head? And they would giggle at me because we really couldn't identify which pillow was actually under the patient's head instead of their bottom or their armpit and places like that. So in spring of 2020, I came up with the thought that maybe my idea of putting air into pillows wasn't some shortcoming, that actually it was a really good idea that could help other patients along the way. And I decided to go for it as I watched one of my colleagues jump into innovation. I sought out the support of our innovation specialist, Lindsay Riegler, at the local Cincinnati. I applied for innovation. I nervously did my first pitch ever with the leadership team at the VA, and I accepted the Spark level as an investee for air-filled pillow. During Spark Cycle, I learned so much what the problem was, who the primary stakeholders were, which was the veterans and the staff. It was 100% virtual, so I had to really stay engaged, but I was able to meet people from across the country who were also being mentored by the INET. I was paired with UC's engineering students in the Quality Life Plus program, designing a prototype for an air compartmental pillow. And then during the seed level, I went through it all again, did my pitch through the executive leaders and was accepted with that level of program. I worked with a local design team, Pixel and Timber. We did a lot of whiteboard meetings, a lot of drawings. And then during lunch, we're sitting there and talking about these valves that we had in front of us and realized that we wanted a valve that was flush. And the engineer said, if we have a flush valve, we probably could put it on a roll. So here we are today, a couple years later, with the innovation of having an air pillow on a roll for bedside units. We have CAD drawings in hand, and I forward through the program into the spread level, which is what I'm at now, working with the Minneapolis Adaptive and Design engineers who made me a wonderful prototype, and we continue to pillage through the situation and trying to get it more modified and things like that. materials, cutting, shaping, heat welding, test, dunking it underwater, doing CPR on it were all the fascinating parts of this project. So I'm really excited about what the future has for Apur, and I'm currently participating at the IEX Innovation Conference here in Washington. And I can't wait to have another year to move forward.
Thanks for sharing your story, Suzanne. We have a question for you here in the chat. So somebody here wants to know, what advice would you give to a staff member who sees a problem but doesn't have leadership support?
That's tricky because I've been so blessed with leadership support. It was a little bit challenging to find out how that support looked, trying to figure out how you have to lean on that support. Because initially you're just trying to wing it and figure out what your role is and the language, learning new language. So I would say for that person is ask again, go to the next level, ask another leader, or divert over, to your innovation specialist on site, because they really are the tools to help with that communication and that process. So lean on your innovation specialist. Yeah.
As an innovation specialist myself, I love that advice. All right, thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you so much.
All right. Suzanne and our next presenter were two of our presenters here at IEX who demoed in the Entrepreneurial Marketplace Day here at IEX, where they pitched to see about having their innovations manufactured. So it was very exciting. Everybody did fantastic. I just want to give everybody some strong kudos for that. And with that, let's hear from our last innovator sharing their experience today, Miss Deborah Cole. Hey, DJ.
Hello all, how you doing?
Good. Tell us about your Atlas knee supporter.
Okay, well, again, my name is Deborah DJ Cole, and I'm an x-ray tech working in the interventional pain clinic at Hunter Holmes McGuire Hospital in Richmond, Virginia. So I'm introducing the Atlas knee supporter. The problem was that the physicians needed an elevated, stable platform to hold our patient's knee still and an alignment to place 4 needles in their knee all the way to the bone. I kept watching these procedures being done, and I felt the pain from the patient. I cringed. Before the supporter, the only device we used were pillows, towels, and sheets to hold the patient to keep the leg somewhat straight. This was not working. The leg was falling off the pillow with the first needle was placed, and it was a start-stop exam. This became a painful and lengthy procedure. I was octopus arms trying to keep that patient on the towels and the knee straight and the x-ray at the same time. Yikes. Because of this, we had several additional issues, and the patient being rescheduled, increased radiation time to the patient and staff, and use of anesthesia and extended time slots. I have been collecting data since 2017 of all the knee procedures, and I talked to our chief of the pain clinic about my idea. I had seen emails about the Innovation Network, and I reached out to my innovation specialist, Catherine Beckner. I told her my idea, and she was very supportive, and we started going for the brass ring. My journey was as a spark, and it took me 3 tries. So for me, I was probably spark, seed, and spread times 3, of course. This was the start of my pivot. In the early days, I reached out to prosthetics and biomed engineer for a prototype. Unfortunately, their design had too many moving parts for the supporter. I wanted one piece that could be easily used for the patient, not a time-consuming product that would add to their anxiety. So I thought there has to be another way. That's when I decided to design the supporter myself. I used my designer shoe boxes, tape and glue, and foam from a craft shop. I used my height, 5'6", as baseline for the design and made it at my kitchen table. From the first prototype, I talked with physicians and staff. I got them to demo the supporter on themselves for height and comfort. I received great feedback from veterans, and the questionnaire I gave them, I got good input and to make improvements. To my surprise, the very first prototype used, the patient wanted to take it home. I was tickled pink. That affirmation knocked my socks off. Throughout the prototyping, I had such an adrenaline rush of the pivots. Ultimately, last year, I applied for the patent. So excited. With talking with patients and staff, it made this journey worthwhile and beneficial. I had enjoyed every avenue of knowing that I can help patients and to never, ever give up. Thank you for your time.
I just love your story, DJ. I just do. I just love you. I love your story that you share with us. How has this changed your life, your work life, your personal life? How has this impacted you?
Well, I stay excited all the time, imagine that. But, but I just enjoy patients. I love my patients and I love everybody who's around me. And I just want the best for everybody around.
Oh, I love it. And you can tell that you bring that love to everything you do. So thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Okay, and thank you again for having me.
Yeah. All right, just want to remind everybody about that QR code. If you have a question for anybody who's sharing their story, their demo, their experience coming up, be sure to send us your questions and we'll ask our presenters for you. So we are going to shift gears a little bit and move from our innovation experiences over to our innovation demos. And first up, we have Gina, Ricky, and Peter here to talk to us about Wearology. Hey guys, how are you?
Good afternoon.
Doing great. How are you all?
Doing well. How are you?
Very good. Tell us a little bit about Wearology and your story.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Gina Adams, the founder of Wearology, and it is a privilege to be joined by my subject matter experts, Peter DeSalvo and Ricky Hawkins from the Hunter Holmes McGuire, Richmond, Virginia, VA. Thanks to them and the entire iNet team, their precious time and talent, we have expedited the development of an FDA mobile rehab device. I am grateful for them seeing beyond a napkin sketch doodle and the magnitude of this opportunity to improve veterans' access to physical rehabilitation. So I'll continue. So after witnessing the impact of Parkinson's on my stepfather, who is a veteran, I launched Wearology to develop assistive devices to restore levels of independence and self-care to help people age in place. In 2020, our team was researching and discovered that 90 million physical therapy appointments are missed annually. And this problem was compounded by quarantine and COVID. So skilled nursing clinicians reported patients suffering from immobilization, and this problem is ongoing. So we designed a portable parallel bar device that folds and has wheels to deliver therapy sooner and safer. And although isolation and access were the initial inspiration, our research over the past year conveys the magnitude of the problem that we're solving. And Peter and Ricky are going to help share today what this device has done. We are ecstatic to be invited to present to a focus group early in the process. And that's where I initially met our team. So this warranted, based on their feedback, this warranted additional exploration and feasibility testing. And so I'm happy to introduce Peter and Ricky.
Yeah, so we were lucky enough to be able to meet Gina and her team via Zoom meeting with them, and they presented the idea to Ricky and myself. Ricky and I are both physical therapists, and so they brought this idea to us as subject matter experts to get a more clinical input into the device. We immediately saw the advantage that they spoke of, that we could deliver therapy on wheels, essentially. We could be a little bit more mobile, and we could give benefits to these patients earlier on. So they gave us the idea, and then we immediately gave them, hey, great idea. This is our feedback as clinicians. Some of the main points that we tried to hit with them were that the patients, when they're up in this device, have to feel confident. So if the device is shaking and moving at all, it's not going to allow the patient to feel confident, which is going to increase their the difficulty of movement and their risk of falling. The device has to be able to bear the patient's weight, any assistive device weight, wheelchair, and the weight of the clinician to be able to stand in the bars with them. It has to be large enough for functional movement. One of the limitations that we have in the ICU is you can use a walker, but a walker, you have to be right up on top of the patient with them. It's a little bit more difficult to be mobile within that walker, and you're limited with your amount of space that you can use. So large enough for functional movement, but then light enough and mobile enough that a clinician can bring it to different areas of the hospital, and well, for us at the hospital, or even for home health therapies. So that was the idea that Gina and them had in mind. And then the last thing, with all of us being very conscious of this these days, is that we wanted to be able to have a device that would be able to be cleaned and disinfected quickly and not have it take time to be cleaned in between patients. Yeah, so we gave them that input. Excuse me. We gave them that input, and we gave them the feedback. They brought in a prototype, which an actual hard prototype that we got to see. We again gave them further critiques. We had other members of our team meet with them as well. And then we were able to give them the ideas for how we could improve upon the prototype even more.
So obviously it was a pleasure and an honor to be selected to be part of the Greenhouse Initiative. We wouldn't be here without them. And, you know, our first challenge was to design to a feeling of confidence. And that included the sight, the hearing, and feeling of something that was secure enough, because most patients, not most, but many are recovering from falls, right? So the first portable parallel bars, the prototype was delivered just last July of 21. And this did meet certain expectations, but it took time, as any first to market device, to refine. So continual collaboration over the past few months. We've been listening to our SMEs, testing different prototypes, and we were really charged to design something that exceeded expectations. And thanks to their honest feedback, our iNet team, you know, we are confident that we were able to deliver something that exceeded expectations. And the video that we're looking at now, if you could play that, please, shows the delivery of the second prototype that was delivered later this, or just this year, in February. So this shows not only, you know, based on the final input report that was provided in April, that gave us the confidence to move forward and commercialize this first FDA Class 1 portable parallel bars on wheels here in my home state of Michigan. And we are so excited to share the next steps. Peter and Ricky, do you want to share?
Yeah, so the next steps are we're hoping to get one of the minimum viable products created and delivered to us that we can utilize here at our VA. And I think that we're going to immediately start to see some of the potential benefits of this device that I think aren't just going to be potential, but we're actually going to see exponential benefits of it. For patients, they're going to be getting mobilized sooner, safer, and then also a more mobile therapy device, despite somebody who would be on isolation normally, or in the ICU, home-based care, or even in our outpatient setting. When when the parallel bars are being used, we have another option for what we can utilize those in. For clinicians, for us as PTs, it's going to reduce the personal and physical strain that we have while mobilizing patients, but also we're going to gain some of that time. So some of the time that we would be using multiple different devices, we can utilize this one device. And then around the department, I mean, like, I'm really excited to see other uses that, like, outside of my normal train of thought, that we would see other clinicians be using it for as well.
Awesome. I mean, the whole story sounds fantastic. What an experience. You know, I'm curious, Ricky and Peter, from VA employee standpoint, what was it like to be able to contribute to this kind of a development of a medical device that has the potential to completely revolutionize your field? What's that been like?
it was pretty exciting. Just Gina's very welcoming, easy to work with. Everybody communicated very well, and I think it's truly going to open up a lot of doors for patients that otherwise are going to be stuck in areas where they won't have access to physical therapy for various reasons, or even just certain exercises. I think is really going to open up a lot of doors for people.
Yeah, I'm excited as well because being able to help create a product that, I may have a very physical therapy minded outlook towards it. I think that there are other clinicians and other different therapies that would be able to utilize this device, and just kind of see the benefits of it from like a multidisciplinary aspect.
Very interesting. Gina, was there anything that was surprising to you along this journey? I mean, partnering with VA in this kind of an endeavor?
Yeah, I'm a product developer. So, I mean, without the clinical input, we wouldn't be here. And it's just incredible to have that type of, I mean, we met weekly, monthly, it was constant, whether it was emails or actually meeting virtually. And it just provided, there's nothing like the end user giving you direct feedback to ensure that you're delivering a product that meets the function and performance to really work. I mean, Catherine Beckner, she said, Gina, don't deliver something if it's not going to work, because we all, clinicians, you guys are so overtaxed as it is. We are hoping to provide efficiencies as well as some safety within the confines of the development. So we're so excited. It's fabulous to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and your experience with us. I can't wait to hear more about it as you test and you try with those other populations.
I can't wait to use it.
Same.
It's coming. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you all.
All right. Next story, we have Pooja and Alyssa to talk to us about their experience with Braze Mobility. Now, if I remember correctly, Braze Mobility was part of our Breaking Boundaries challenge. Is that right?
That's right.
All right, tell us about Braze and the experience you all have had this last year.
Yeah, so hi, my name is Pooja Vishwanathan. I'm the CEO and founder of Braze Mobility. To start with my origin story here, around 20 years ago, I walked into a long-term care facility for the first time and noticed that a lot of residents were slumped over in manual wheelchairs. Now, they didn't have the strength to propel their own wheelchairs and weren't allowed to use motorized or power wheelchairs. Majority of wheelchair users actually experience accidents that result in injury. And since power wheelchairs can often be fairly destructive because of their size, their weight, and their speed, individuals are often excluded from using them, even when no other option for independent mobility exists. So I really saw this as a violation of a fundamental human right. And after over a decade of research on smart wheelchairs that could increase safe and independent mobility, I started Braze Mobility in 2016 and actually launched the world's first blind spot sensors for wheelchairs that offer alerts to the user regarding the location and proximity of obstacles through intuitive lights, sounds, and vibrations. Now, during the last several years, this technology has impacted hundreds of users across the world. For example, Phil Ratzliff, a US veteran with legal blindness, ALS, and traumatic brain injury, who can navigate his power wheelchair independently now using the audio and vibration alerts of the Braze blind spot sensors. Or another example is Wade Watts, a Canadian veteran who uses the multimodal alerts to help him navigate in the tight spaces in his home. Now, the VA was actually an early adopter, purchasing our first commercial system for a veteran back in 2018. And since then, I had collaborated informally with several therapists and engineers at the VA and veterans as well as we continue to develop the technology at Braze. Now, while our technology is helping wheelchair users navigate in indoor spaces more safely and independently, we recognize the need for additional assistance when navigating outdoors, where there are several accessibility barriers like drop-offs or uneven terrain or surface and elevation changes. So last year, I had the privilege of presenting an IEX talk about my journey developing the blind spot sensors, but I also had the opportunity to pitch a new terrain analysis system as part of the Breaking Boundaries Collaboration Challenge. We were thrilled to have 7 VA sites select our project, and through this collaboration, I was really lucky to meet someone who had her own story that led her to this collaboration.
Hi, my name's Alyssa Welch, and I'm an innovation specialist in Arkansas. 5 years ago, my friend Jeff died after injuries that he sustained when his power wheelchair fell from a drop-off. And this was a horrific loss that didn't have to happen. And so when the opportunity to be a part of a project that involved wheelchair safety, I was more than eager to get involved.
So after interviewing more than 20 VA employees, including therapists and a dozen veterans, we identified 2 priorities for outdoor navigation assistance: detection of obstacles above the ground and drop-off detection. We then went on to set up multiple realistic driving scenarios with obstacles to observe how the veterans drove with and without the brace sensors. We even had therapists score the veterans using a standardized wheelchair driving assessment. Here's a video of a veteran trying to back up in between 2 bins. We'll play it first without sensors. And here you can see that he drags one of the bins back with him and has trouble centering himself. And now with the sensors, even though he's got very little room on either side, he parks right in the center without hitting anything.
So some of our findings that we learned through this opportunity were really expected. You know, we found that the brace sensors were able to help our veterans to navigate around obstacles more safely. And our veterans also said that they had increased awareness and confidence while using the sensors. But with the drop-off detection, we were able to gain insight on timing and modality of feedback. But we also found some unexpected findings. We learned through our discovery and interviewing veterans that they were really hesitant to share any type of accidents that they had using their wheelchairs. Veterans stated that they were really afraid that they would lose their chairs, that they would be taken away from them because they weren't safe. And they were afraid of losing their independence based on this discovery. So we're working to create a safe place where veterans can discuss their mobility challenges with therapists. We want to educate therapists on technologies that can assist our veterans in navigation. And we want to educate families and caregivers and the challenges related to operating power mobility. This last year has been a great opportunity. I've gotten to interview veterans, partner with our rehab therapists, meet new friends in our carpentry department. I've learned some new videography skills, and I've learned a lot about mobility and power safety. So I'm proud to have been a part of this collaboration that introduced our veterans to tools that would make them more confident and independent in their mobility. And this could open doors for many veterans who have been excluded from this opportunity because they were felt unsafe. So just remember, independence and mobility really matter.
Well, great story, you guys. We have a question for you all in the chat, and I think Pooja and Alyssa, maybe you want to chime in from the innovation specialist perspective. But the question is, how is this different than Lucy technology on select power wheelchairs?
Yeah, so the Brace mobility system is actually compatible with any wheelchair. It's actually compatible with both power mobility and manual wheelchairs as well. And there are several differences. First of all, our system is the only one that actually offers multimodal alerts. So we actually keep the user in control. This is really, really important because before I developed the Brace system, as I mentioned, I had done research on smart wheelchairs for over a decade. And in fact, all of my research was actually on technology that would intervene. So that would automatically, take control of the chair, maybe slow down, stop, do different things. And what we found through clinical research of over a decade was that there were a lot of limitations of this sort of technology and a lot of potentially adverse effects to the user. So frustration or confusion, not knowing when the chair is intervening and not agreeing with what the chair is doing. And so we really thought it was important to keep our users fully in control. And the cost is also a major difference. Our systems start at around $1,800 for the lowest cost option and range between $2,000 and $3,000. So are a lot more affordable and oftentimes fundable as well.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Both of you all, another question for you here in the chat. What is your best advice for approaching innovation?
Wow. I would say my best advice is just do it. I know that's an overused logo, but yeah, just do it. I mean, if you've got an idea, pursue it. What's the worst that can happen? You could fail. We learn from failure. And so again, in innovation, failure's not a dirty word. So go for it. There's so many resources and so many people that want to help you succeed within VA.
Yeah, I echo that.
All right, awesome. Thank you guys so much. It sounds like you guys had a really great collaborative team, learned a lot, and engaged veteran staff, and all for the betterment of wheelchair users everywhere. So thank you so much.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I want to remind everybody who's watching about our QR codes. If you have any questions for our presenters and you'd like to get some clarification, more information, or ask about their experience, please scan that QR code with your phone and let us know what you would like to ask them. So with that, we are going to be switching from learning about some of our demos, our collaborations, and we are going to be moving over to some of our exhibitions. So with that today, joining us again today is Tom Osborne and David Ariola. And today they're going to be talking with us about leveraging 5G in healthcare. So welcome back, Tom and David. It's great to have you join us again today.
Thank you so much. It's fantastic to be here and to be able to share some of the work our team is doing. First, some acknowledgments. We got a slide up. In addition to the great support that we get from the people you all know in Innovation Ecosystem, I wanted to give a shout out and highlight some of the people that many may not know, including our teams in the circles there, fantastic folks, as well as amazing executive support from VA Palo Alto facility leaders, such as our amazing Director, Lisa Howard, as well as our super chief of staff, Mike Kozel. All right. So let's talk about 5G in healthcare. Why 5G in healthcare? So the first thing is our team takes on big transformational projects because our team's mission, our purpose, our focus is to help provide the best, most advanced healthcare possible for our veterans, to lean forward and to put VA in the driver's seat as we collaborate to advance healthcare. So one of the things that we know that's happened over the last couple of decades, one of the great things that healthcare has done is to collect a large amount of digital data. And that volume has been increasing exponentially. However, one of the things that's been lagging behind is converting that data into information, that information into knowledge, and knowledge to wisdom. That's where the real value is. So how can we optimally leverage this underutilized resource to advance care? Well, there's some of the things we can do that need a more efficient way of moving the data around, especially lots of data, more effective ways to process it, large volumes of data. We need bigger pipes to move this stuff around. So through our wonderful collaboration with Verizon, they provided us this infrastructure so we can do things that we've only dreamed of before and things that others once thought were impossible. So before the pandemic hit, we were working on building out this infrastructure to vet out the details and to optimize the use cases before we scale it out. And let's go to the next slide. Thanks. And so as a result of that, our team, our VA at Palo Alto became the first 5G enabled hospital. And we became one of the first in the world. And of course, that was February 2020, right around COVID hit. And that introduced a lot of unexpected challenges. But nonetheless, since that time, we've been expanding the infrastructure in complex and nuanced ways. And we've been doing this while we've also been creating and exploring and optimizing advanced healthcare use cases in parallel. So before we get into some of the clinical use cases that I'm really excited about, our National Center's awesome team member, David Ariola, who's been working and doing tremendous work with our PM, Ilya Valetsky, he's going to tell you a little bit more about what it takes to build this infrastructure and some of those details. So David, take it away.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. Again, my name's David Ariola. I'm the Tech Integration Analyst and been working on this project from the beginning. I wanted to go into some details here. Can we move to the next slide, please? Innovation, I think in general, is often viewed as very glamorous work. But the reality is with projects like this of such large scale, there's a lot of work that goes unrecognized. So I want to spend a few moments to go into those details, some of the foundational work that was required to make our 5G project a success. As you know, Verizon, massive telecom company, but even a company like Verizon can't just walk into a place like VA Palo Alto, which is a huge campus, and deploy a large scale 5G network without key institutional knowledge. This required a true partnership between VA and Verizon to execute properly. As you see in the photos here, we had to start off with achieving our first major milestone. And this was, or included, trying to identify underground pathways from Verizon's nearest network center into the basement of our primary building where we had a telecom room. As you can see in the photo, that's an example of one of the underground vaults where we started our discovery process. And the photo right next to it is a team of Verizon and VA engineers, as well as safety, that all had to come together to make sure the hazards were minimized when we started this process. We started the discovery process that led underground to, from the beginning or outside of our campus into the basement of our primary building, Building 100. Let's move to the next slide. So we spent weeks underground trying to connect all the various routes that would eventually lead to our primary building. As you can see in the photos here, we had portions of these underground pathways that led directly under buildings that were already existing. We had contractors that had an army crawl in dirt up and over pipes for hundreds of feet, just to get this fiber through. It was quite an adventure. After weeks of work underground, we eventually achieved our first milestone, which was bringing in dedicated fiber into the basement of our telecom room. As you see in the second photo, that bundle represents a 1,500-foot pool of dedicated fiber that set the foundation for our 5G infrastructure, as well as for in-building and building-to-building connectivity. It doesn't look like much, but that had sweat, blood, and tears written all over it. And we were so happy to achieve that milestone. Next slide. Needless to say, I'm extremely proud of the 5G deployment at VA Palo Alto, being there from the beginning up until the end. Few people know that 5G is actually made up of 3 different bands. You have low band, mid band, and high band. All have different use cases for indoor and outdoor. But what most people think about 5G, they're thinking about high band, which is also known as millimeter wave and ultra wideband signal. This can deliver high speed throughput with low latency signal that can help enable technologies like Tom's about to go over here shortly. So with that being said, I'd like to hand it back over to Tom, and he can go into more detail on how we're leveraging this technology in our healthcare system. Thank you.
Awesome, David. Thank you so much. David and Ilya and so many others in our facility have been doing a great job. Amazing. So as we're saying earlier, we've been leveraging a number of 5G enabled tools to do a lot of stuff, services, all kinds of products and projects, from operations to clinical care. One of the things, let's go to the next slide. One of the things we've been working on is advanced, click the button again. One of the things we've been doing is advanced 5G enabled drones that allow us to do greater situational and operational awareness in real time in emergency responses and maintenance and support. So here is our lieutenant at VA Palo Alto, Daniel Segur, awesome guy. He's having the drone, flying the drone when we had a Federal Mobility Group Summit at VA Palo Alto that we hosted. And we had people from the DoD and the FBI and the GSA all over federal coming to learn about our pioneering work and how these drones work. So hit the next slide, please. And so we can see things really far, high resolution images, real time. Hit the slide again. We have maps that'll show us the areas that we looked at and areas that we haven't looked at yet. Hit the slide again. We even have thermal imaging to be able to see things in greater resolution and fidelity than we could before. Hit the next slide, please. And so all kinds of stuff. So you can imagine use cases from a wandering patient that you are very, interested in getting to as soon as possible and as effectively as possible. Hit the slide again. Also, lots of natural disasters happen everywhere throughout our country. You know, we've heard about them before. This will allow us to mobilize and organize people much more effectively. Slide again. And also just typical stuff like maintenance and support, being able to see our facility from above, hit the slide again, checking out assets like solar panels and being able to identify ones that need services before anyone else knows. Hit the slide again. All right, perfect. We've also been using this 5G infrastructure and Verizon capabilities with our other creative partners like Microsoft and Metavis. And we've been optimizing all kinds of stuff like high resolution interactive anatomy models and virtual reality for teaching and training. Multiple projects, nursing, surgery, all kinds of folks have been using these at our facility. Next slide, please. All right, perfect. So I'm a diagnostic radiologist by training. And so when I see an image come across the screen, it usually looks like this. Now, for me, I've been doing this for a long time and I can interpret that. But for most people, this is not super intuitive to look at. So we've been able to use this system, next slide, to transform those two-dimensional objects or images into three-dimensional holographic images that you can manipulate and transform. So it's intuitive. And also that you can use this for pre-surgical planning, which we're using. Also can use this for personalized education, know exactly what's going on in that patient. Now imagine this, you can do that. You take someone's CT scan, turn it into 3 dimensions. We've been able to take that and superimpose that virtual image on top of somebody. So for the first time, we have virtual 3-dimensional X-ray vision. Super compelling. Next slide, please. And so there's tons of stuff you can do. You can transform many different ways and even use this, which we're working on in the lab, to optimize the abilities in situations like surgery and procedures. It's going to really transform how we deliver care. Speaking of, some of you, this is the last one. I know we're running out of time. Some of you may have remembered Star Wars. So this is transformational, right? And I saw this thing, Star Wars, you know, Princess Leia was projected by a hologram from R2-D2. And I was like, that's awesome, but that'll never happen. Well, with this technology and all the infrastructure and our partners and the great collaboration and engineers, we've been able to pull this together. So let's take the next slide. So this is me. You can see a semi-transparent hologram. I'm in a different room and I'm being projected into a patient room. So imagine someone who's isolated because of COVID, because of infection concerns. And that person, you know, they want to interact with someone, but they can't, you know, it's too distant. You can bring somebody virtually into the room for the first time. Lots of potential and implications for all kinds of things, including telehealth. All right, next slide. I know I'm out of time, but I just want to thank everybody. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Well, that sounds like a real game changer for lots of different ways, lots of different things that we do in VA. You know, I'm curious, what's the next chapter of 5G in healthcare? Can other VA facilities look forward to this technology being rolled out?
Absolutely. Fantastic question. So there are other facilities who are starting to do this as well. Myself and a bunch of others have pulled together a 5G group where we can talk about stuff, and, you know, across the VA. Angela Gant Curtis and I are pulling that together, and other people have been working on it as well. And Brian Stevenson's been working on this as well. And so we're all coming together to try to figure out this new infrastructure, this new technology, so we can help everyone be successful. So that's one part. And another part is, geez, there's things, to your point, there's things that we thought of that we could really benefit from using 5G. But as we go forward, we're like, oh my gosh, these are things that we couldn't even have imagined of before, that now we're starting to uncover, really, like it's an onion. You know, you pull back the layers and you're like, oh my gosh, we can do more stuff than we ever imagined. So it's a really exciting time in general for all of us in healthcare, but in particular for us in this space.
That's amazing. What has been the most surprising part of it for you? It sounds like there's been a lot, but can you pinpoint like one thing as being the most surprising?
That's a great question. It is, bringing science fiction to life is probably the most compelling part of this. And I gave one example, but there's many others that we have in development that we'll share probably the next time. But being able to be at the cutting edge, the bleeding edge of a lot of this technology, and do things that we just thought was science fiction, bringing it to our patients, that's the most exciting part.
Amazing. We're that much closer to living the Jetsons lifestyle, huh?
Perhaps.
All right, thank you so much for sharing with us today. That is exciting stuff. Next, we are going to hear from Ms. Tracy Robalato and to learn a little bit about her Resuscitation Innovation Impact Expo. So, hey Tracy, how are you?
Good afternoon. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Tell us what you've got.
Thanks so much for having me today. I'm Tracy Robalato, and I'm the Associate Director for the Resuscitation Education and Innovation Program. Poor CPR quality is a preventable harm. 290,000 cardiac arrests occur in hospitals annually, and sadly, less than 30% of those patients survive. Although this seems like a high number, cardiac arrests are relatively infrequent and are considered a low volume, high risk patient event. These statistics have changed very little over the past 10 years, prompting recommendation changes from the American Heart Association and now the Joint Commission. Research has shown that this infrequency in cardiac arrests results in declining CPR skills over time, some in as little as a few weeks. AHA recommends booster training to combat skill degradation, and the Joint Commission now requires more frequent training, explaining that CPR performance remains suboptimal and that adequate training in resuscitation or lack thereof is a frequently cited factor in hospital resuscitation performance. Resuscitation Quality Improvement, or RQI, is a low-dose, high-frequency training innovation. Learners complete the traditional 2-year curriculum divided into 4 quarters. This skill practice takes approximately 10 to 20 minutes to complete, and that minimizes time away from patient care. This training is driving a paradigm shift from a culture of completion to a culture of competence. And approximately 80% of our regular full-time clinicians are enrolled in RQI across the enterprise. We have been honored to hear some amazing stories where our VA staff provided CPR in the field and resuscitated a coach, an athlete, a friend, a neighbor, a stranger. Each one of these staff were not working in a traditional clinical role and reported that they were confident and successful in delivering this life-saving care because they were enrolled in RQI. Here are some excerpts from their stories. A psychologist wrote, "I am writing to express my extreme gratitude for the new BLS skill training we are now required to complete every quarter in our psychology service. Last night, I attended a high school basketball game and witnessed a sudden cardiac arrest with one of the coaches. But for superb BLS skills requirement I just completed 2 weeks ago, this could have been catastrophic. I am so grateful for those fresh skills. There are just no words to express how thankful I am to have been prepared." A psychiatric nurse practitioner successfully resuscitated her neighbor who arrested while cutting the grass. She often wondered if it was worth her time or if she would ever even use the skills on a real patient. She teleworks and all of her patients are virtual. She figured training every 2 years would be more than sufficient. She stated that when she reached the neighbor, he didn't have a pulse and wasn't breathing, and that's when her training kicked in. She stated, "I could hear the computer program counting in my head with that computer voice the whole time. I was thinking, making sure I go deep enough, but allowing time for recoil." An LPN who works in the spinal cord injury credits his actions to training he received while on the job. He immediately took control and began performing CPR on a man who collapsed on the basketball court. He stated, "My main thought was, please don't die on me." The man who survived sent a text message thanking him for saving his life. The nurse stated, "After this experience, the first thing I did at work the very next day was go up to that CPR mannequin and give it a hug." A patient escort had just dropped off a veteran when a stranger in distress approached. A backseat passenger was found unresponsive. After checking for a pulse, he immediately began performing CPR. He said, "When I got word of a patient being in distress, my training kicked in and I responded without hesitation." Lastly, a social worker responded to a car accident and performed CPR on a victim pulled from the wreckage. She is unsure of the outcome for the man as he was taken to the hospital, but because of her quick response, confident in her ability to perform CPR and immediate initiation of compressions, she can at least feel assured that she gave him the best possible chance for the best possible outcome. Not ever having any other medical training, she credits our RQI program for making her feel confident and competent in her abilities to perform CPR. We frequently receive inquiries regarding clinicians who are not working in traditional clinical areas, asking if they still are required to have CPR training. We may never use our CPR skills in the workplace, and I hope that you never will. But what about in our community? Will you be ready to resuscitate a friend, a family member, perhaps a coworker? Thank you.
Wow, that is some impactful stuff there, Tracy. All of those stories really help bring to life the impact of the RQI program. You know, if I had met you a few years ago and I told you that you were going to be sharing the story of this program, this new education initiative at IEX, what would you have said?
I think I would have been surprised because this technology has really taken off quickly, especially over the last 3 years. Change is hard, and it's been an uphill battle all the way. This is one benefit that the pandemic brought us. We couldn't go into the classroom. We couldn't be in close spaces. Well, we had a technology to keep our staff trained and ready for all of the needs that COVID brought our veterans. I think what's been most surprising to me was as we've been chipping away and making a change within the VA, I didn't think about the potential impact we would have in the community, and that's been huge.
Yeah, I think that's something that we don't talk about enough. We don't realize how the amazing work that we do here, it does have a ripple effect. So thank you for highlighting that. That's amazing.
Thank you so much.
All right, we are going to switch now to Miss Christina Johnson and learning some more about her chronic pain application. So hey Christina, how are you this afternoon?
I'm good. How are you?
I am well. Let's hear what you've got. Tell us about your chronic pain application.
Okay. First, my name's Christina Johnson. I'm a physician assistant with the anesthesia department at Richmond and also the director of the anesthesia infusion clinic. We administer outpatient ketamine for chronic pain and refractory migraines. We have noticed that patients that have chronic pain needs can present a challenge for pain management, especially in an environment right now where opioid mitigation is promoted more and more. These patients tend to be evaluated only at the time of their physician visits and maybe occasionally in between when they get a phone call from either a nurse or one of the mid-levels at the clinic. So a long time could pass with any information on how effective meds have been, any alternative therapies are working, and if there's any adjustments that need to be made, it's all leaves it up to the patients getting through and calling. So we wanted to find a solution to fill the gap in the feedback. And that led us to development of a concept of a patient-based mobile phone application. This app randomly sends questions to the patients, evaluates their pain intensity, their mental health, their ability to perform ADLs or activities of daily living. The information should be collected in an unobtrusive manner and recorded into a database. Machine learning algorithms can then be applied to detect how a specific intervention has impacted the patient's functional ability with their ADLs, their mood, and determine if additional interventions are necessary. Additionally, we can use individual projected trajectories to anticipate when the patient's next visit is needed. So actually, before the patient even calls, we can call them. The application will also allow for additional patient-physician communication and the ability to send educational materials or even recommend nutritional approaches. Healthcare providers will be better connected with their patients, receive feedback on successful individual therapies, and an additional benefit is the opportunity to evaluate a specific therapy if a specific therapy is beneficial for a specific population. Example, ketamine for complex regional pain syndrome versus opioids, which one has better pain control. Overall, our goal is to provide a continuum of care, coordinated therapeutic evaluations, and to have a patient and physician facilitating tool to improve healthcare delivery and patient engagement throughout the VA. This will allow for a more efficient process in identifying and addressing patient needs. So with immense support from the Innovation Network, we've been collaborating with information technology companies to develop this application and the database. By the end of the fiscal year, our goal is to have completed applications with a patient and a health care provider portal, which will allow us to begin a small pilot group testing for refinement of features and user interface. Just think about it. I haven't made a patient yet who didn't have a cell phone in their pocket. So it's definitely going to be an asset for them. Thank you for your time.
Wow, that sounds amazing. What a whole health approach to pain management, and right there in your pocket, just like you said.
Right.
Right. You know, what is something you would say to other VA employees who maybe see a problem like this in their work area, facing patient after patient? What would you tell them?
As far as identifying a problem, don't identify the problem, look for solutions, look for ways to fill these gaps, these voids that you find, and to solve the problem. And then also, there's a lot of support within the VA, the Innovation Network, and everybody to build upon these solutions that you come up with.
Awesome. All right, I look forward to hearing about your experience this time next year and how your pilot goes, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you for your time.
All right, so switching now to our last presentation of today, we have Miss Bonnie Haupt and Lisa Hubbard to tell us about their musculoskeletal telehealth program. So hey Bonnie, hey Lisa, how are you guys this afternoon?
Hi, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
Doing well. Let's hear what you have for us with your program.
Okay, thank you so much for having us today. We are really excited to be here to talk to you about our musculoskeletal telehealth program. My name is Bonnie Haupt, and Lisa Hubbard is also on the screen. She'll be popping in, but I'm just going to give you a little background information about our program. And some of you may be aware of this, but in the past decade, MSK conditions were identified as the most frequent diagnoses in primary care clinic encounters in the US. And due to the COVID-19 crisis, there was an increase in telehealth appointments. So our subject matter experts who were practicing MSK assessments identified that there was a potential gap in veteran care. And due to our team's commitment to the high reliability concepts, and specifically sensitivity to operations, it really led the teams to develop the SimLearn MSK telehealth virtual simulation training course. That's a mouthful. And really the purpose of this class is to provide clinicians a safe learning environment with standardized guidelines and a framework necessary to master the MSK telehealth shoulder and knee examinations in our changing healthcare environment. And the goal of the program is to improve knowledge, skills, and confidence in managing these common shoulder and knee problems that affect our veteran populations. And in addition to the training, they really emphasize appropriate resource utilization and access to specialty care and treatments. So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa, and she's going to share some great stories from this program. Thank you.
Hi, I would now like to share 2 success stories with you from our musculoskeletal telehealth courses recently held. Our MSK telehealth course is taught on Microsoft Teams and held 2 weeks apart, with the shoulder content on week 1 and knee content on week 2. We start the second week with an overview of the shoulder content. This is where our learners can ask questions and provide comments from the previous week. One clinician stated that during a telehealth visit, a veteran complained of right shoulder pain. He was able to utilize skills he learned from the class, including a systematic checklist, and diagnosed the veteran with a chronic rotator cuff tear. Because of taking this course, he felt he had the confidence to diagnose the rotator cuff tear and order physical therapy for the veteran without an MRI. Now, this is a true example of Undersecretary Dr. El Nahal's priority of connecting veterans to soonest and best care. Another learner who just completed a course we had in September. She's a clinician in a brand new role. She started working with CRH, or Clinical Resource Hubs, in August of this year. She's based out of Wyoming, works for the Palo Alto VA healthcare system. All of her patients are seen 100% virtual through VA Video Connect. She took this course to gain knowledge and learn musculoskeletal exams she could do over a video visit. I received an email from her stating, "I just wanted to reach out and tell you the MSK course was awesome. I learned a lot. It helped me tremendously. I was so grateful for your MSK program." Again, this is certainly an example of how this MSK telehealth course supports our HRO principal value of it's all about the veteran. Thank you so much.
That was a great story, Bonnie and Lisa. Thank you for sharing it with us. I'm curious, what has been the most useful resource that has helped you all with your innovation since collaborating with the Innovators Network?
I think the resource of being able to have, I think the Microsoft Teams being able to teach our learners. It is truly, this is a virtual course, and being able to, we teach our learners virtually. It is a virtual course, and again, they see their patients virtually. So I think that, prior to COVID, the learners would come into our simulation center. So it was a hands-on course to, they would see their patients hands-on, where this is a virtual course and they see their patients virtually. So it's completely flipped the script.
Definitely.
So having that sort of innovation, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Were there any obstacles that you all encountered that you had to pivot to overcome, or maybe go in a different direction than you initially thought?
Yeah, absolutely. There was no validated checklists for a virtual shoulder and knee exam. And that's where we brought in 43 subject matter experts. And yes, that's where we had our subject matter experts do this checklist. And that was through a consensus. So it was quite a process that we did this, and thank goodness the VA is just full of absolutely wonderful subject matter experts.
Yes, that is something we have somebody for everything, don't we? That's amazing.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for sharing your story with us this afternoon. What a great thing you've come up with to help our veterans.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having us.
All right. And all right, everybody, that is it for us today. Thank you for tuning in to our innovation stories this afternoon. Please be sure to join us again tomorrow when Matt Knight is going to be hosting our last round of innovation stories here tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern. All right, see you then.